The wind is howling hard across an open plain. The temperature just dropped 20 degrees in an hour. And yet, inside a small cone of buffalo hide, a family sits warm, laughing, safe. No nails, no blueprints, no hardware store nearby. Just simple wood, hide, and knowledge passed down for 1,000 long years. How did they do it? Stick around with me, because this story will change how you see a simple tent forever. Let's go back a few hundred years. The Great Plains stretch out in every direction, grass as far as the eye can see. Wind that never seems to stop. This is home to people like the Lakota, the Cheyenne, the Blackfeet, and the Crow. These are the Plains tribes, and their whole life moves with the buffalo. Where the herds go, the people go too. That means home can't be heavy. Home can't take days to build. Home has to move, and move fast. Now think about the weather out there. Summers that scorch the grass brown. Winters that bite through anything thin. Storms that roll in with almost no warning at all. There's no corner store nearby. No weather app pinging a warning. Just the sky, the wind, and years of watching both closely. Survival meant reading nature like a book. And nowhere was that more important than in the home they built each and every time they moved. Now imagine trying to build a house every few weeks. Sounds impossible, right? But that's exactly what these families did. Not out of hardship, but out of pure genius. They needed shelter that could survive brutal winters. Shelter that could handle screaming plains winds. Shelter that could go up in an hour and come down just as fast. So they built the teepee. And trust me, it's smarter than anything you've seen. Let's start with the poles. Long, straight poles, usually cut from lodgepole pine. Why pine? Because it's light but strong. A family might use anywhere from 12 to 20 poles for one teepee. Cutting them wasn't random either. Certain trees were chosen with care. Straight trunks, no knots, no weak spots, because one bad pole could mean a collapse in a storm. And out on the plains, a collapse could mean life or death. Finding good poles wasn't always easy. Sometimes families traveled miles just to find the right trees. They'd walk through forests, tapping trunks, checking for rot. A little knock here, a little knock there. Listen close, and the wood tells you everything. Once cut, the poles were stripped of bark and dried. Then they were cared for like tools, not scraps of wood lying around. Because these poles would carry a family's whole world, season after season. Here's something most people don't know. It was usually the women who built the teepee, not the men. Women owned the teepee. Women designed it. Women raised it, and women took it down. Think about that for a second. The home, the whole family's survival, rested in their hands, and they were fast. A skilled group of women could raise a teepee in under an hour, some say even faster. Try building a tent that quick. Go on, I'll wait. Young girls learned this skill early, watching their mothers, their aunties, their grandmothers. Small hands helping tie knots, long before they understood why. By the time a girl became a woman, she already knew how to build a home from nothing. That knowledge wasn't written in any book. It lived in muscle memory, passed hand to hand, season after season, camp after camp. And here's the thing, this wasn't just labor, it was pride. A well-built teepee said something about the family inside. Neat stitching, straight poles, a cover pulled tight, with no sag anywhere, other women in camp would notice. Word would spread. Skill like that earned real respect, the kind you couldn't buy, only earn. So how did they actually do it? First, 3 or 4 poles were tied together near the top. This created the base tripod. Strong, balanced, able to hold serious weight. Then more poles were added around that tripod, one by one, leaning in like fingers closing into a fist. Each pole had its place. Each pole had its purpose. This wasn't guesswork. This was engineering passed down through generations, memorized by heart. Once the poles were up, the real magic began. Buffalo hides, sewn together into one giant cover, were wrapped around the frame. Picture a huge blanket, hoisted with a single pole, then pulled tight around the structure. It took real strength to lift that cover into place. Hides could weigh well over 50 pounds when fully assembled. And remember, this happened outside, in wind, in cold, sometimes with snow already falling. Now here's where it gets clever. The bottom of the cover was pinned to the ground with wooden stakes or heavy stones. This kept wind from sneaking underneath and ripping the whole thing apart. But the top, that was the real trick. 2 flaps, called smoke flaps, stuck out like ears at the very peak. These flaps could be adjusted with long poles from outside. Turn them one way, smoke escapes. Turn them another, wind stays out. It's basically a built-in chimney system, made from hide and wood alone. Let that sink in for a second. No metal, no glass, no electricity, and yet they built a home that could vent smoke, block wind, and survive a blizzard. Modern tents rip apart in 50-mile-an-hour winds. Tepees were built to handle exactly that, and worse. The cone shape wasn't just for looks. It was aerodynamic before that word even existed. Simple materials, genius design, a combination hard to beat even now. Inside, life carried on just like any home. A fire pit sat in the center, right beneath that clever smoke hole. Family members slept around the edges, feet pointing toward the warmth. An inner liner, made from hide or cloth, was often hung a few feet up the inside wall. This liner did something brilliant. It created a pocket of air between the liner and the outer cover. That pocket trapped heat and pushed cold drafts up and out through the top. Think about that design for a second. It's basically what modern insulated jackets try to copy today. Layers, air pockets, trapped warmth. These families figured it out with buffalo hide and instinct, long before anyone wrote it in a science book. No wonder explorers who first saw teepees were completely stunned. Now let's talk about size, because teepees weren't all the same. A small family teepee might use 12 poles and stand about 12 feet tall. But ceremonial tepees, the big ones used for gatherings and councils, could tower over 20 feet high. Some needed 25 poles or more. Raising one of those wasn't a solo job. It took a whole team working together, calling out instructions, laughing between the effort. Picture dozens of hands pulling ropes at once, all in rhythm, someone shouting directions, someone else steadying a pole against the wind. It probably looked chaotic to a stranger passing by. But every motion had purpose, every shout had meaning. This was teamwork perfected over generations, not chaos at all. And here's a detail that always gets people. The hides used weren't random either. Buffalo cows, not bulls, provided the best hide. Why? Their skin was thinner, lighter, and easier to work with. Hunting, tanning, and sewing enough hide for one teepee could take an entire season of work. We're talking 8 to 20 buffalo hides, stitched together by hand, using sinew as thread. Sinew, by the way, is the tough tissue from animal tendons, stronger than most cotton thread even today. Picture the process: skinning the buffalo, scraping the hide clean, soaking it, stretching it, softening it, sometimes using the animal's own brain in a process called brain tanning. Sounds strange, right? But it worked. The brain's natural oils softened tough hide into something almost like leather cloth. Nothing wasted, nothing thrown away. Then came the sewing, hides laid out on the ground, edges lined up with care, holes punched with bone awls, one after another, hour after hour. Sinew threaded through each hole, pulled tight, knotted small, no sewing machine humming along, just fingers, patience, and the quiet sound of thread pulling through hide. This wasn't a weekend project. This was months of labor, done mostly by hand, mostly by women, passed down mother to daughter for generations. Here's the surprising part most people never expect. Teepees weren't just shelter. They were canvases. Families painted symbols, animals, and stories right onto the hide. A tepee could show a family's history, their battles, their dreams, their spiritual beliefs. Walking through a camp wasn't just walking past tents. It was walking past storybooks, each one telling a different family's tale in color and symbol. Some paintings showed a warrior's brave deeds, done in battle years before. Others showed animals that visited a person in a dream: bears, eagles, buffalo, painted bold and proud across the hide. Colors came from crushed berries, clay, and charcoal, mixed by hand into paint. Nothing store-bought, nothing mass-produced. Every single teepee was one of a kind, like a fingerprint made of hide and color. Imagine walking through a camp at sunset. Firelight glowing behind painted walls, shadows of buffalo and eagles dancing across the hide, kids running between teepees, laughing, weaving through this living gallery of stories. It must have felt like walking through a museum that breathed, that moved, that told its stories out loud. And get this, the direction the teepee door faced mattered deeply. Almost every teepee opened toward the east. Why? To greet the rising sun each morning. That's not an accident. That's intention. That's meaning woven into architecture, long before anyone used a fancy word like that. Even the smoke flaps had names, treated almost like living parts of the home. Some communities saw the teepee as more than shelter. They saw it as a living being, a body with a door for a mouth, poles for ribs, and a smoke hole to breathe through. Stop and think about that. Their home wasn't just a structure, it was practically alive to them. Now let's talk about takedown, because this part still amazes people today. When it was time to move, families could take a teepee down in about 15 minutes. Poles became a travois, dragged behind dogs and later horses. The hide cover folded up into a tight bundle. Everything packed, everything ready, in less time than it takes to watch one episode of a TV show. No trucks, no moving boxes. Just skill, teamwork, and generations of practice. Compare that to moving day to day. Boxes everywhere. Bubble wrap. Arguments about who forgot to pack the kitchen. These families did it faster, with far less, and somehow made it look easy. That's not luck. That's mastery, earned over centuries of practical experience. Picture a whole camp packing up at once. Dozens of families working in rhythm, like one giant machine made of hands. Poles down, hides folded. Fires put out, ashes scattered so no trace remained. Within an hour, sometimes less, an entire village could vanish from the land. Grass barely bent where the tip is once stood, almost like they were never there at all. And here's a small detail that always gets me. Dogs carried loads long before horses arrived on the plains. Small travois, dragged patiently behind, piled high with folded hides and gear. Then, when horses came into the picture, everything changed. Bigger loads, longer trips, faster moves across open land. The teepee adapted right along with it, staying just as clever, just as functional through every shift in tools and travel. So here's the surprising fact that really flips the story. Many people assume the teepee was primitive, simple, basic. But scientists and engineers have studied the shape for decades. That cone structure creates something called a smoke vortex. Cool air enters at the bottom, spirals upward, and pushes smoke out cleanly through the top flaps. It's a natural ventilation system, and it actually inspired parts of modern tent and even chimney design. Something built with wood and hide, centuries ago quietly influenced engineering ideas used today. Think about that for a moment. No computers, no wind tunnels, no physics degree, just careful observation, trial, and generations of shared knowledge. They watched the wind, they watched the smoke, they adjusted and adjusted again until they built something almost perfect. That's not primitive, that's brilliant. Some researchers have even tested teepee models in wind tunnels just to see how they hold up. The results surprised almost everyone involved. The shape barely moves, even under strong gusts. Air slides around the curve instead of slamming into it. Meanwhile, modern tents built with all our technology still struggle in half that wind. Funny how something built centuries ago can still outsmart machines built yesterday. So why does this story matter today? Because it's easy to look back and assume old ways were simple or somehow less advanced. But the teepee proves otherwise. It proves that careful observation beats fancy tools every time. It proves that community effort, especially the skill of women, built the backbone of Plains life. It proves that home isn't about size, or metal, or permanence. Sometimes home is about knowing your land, respecting your resources, and working together with people you love. Next time you see a teepee in a photo, or a movie, or a museum, look closer. That's not just a tent. That's centuries of engineering. That's a family story, painted right on the walls. That's survival, warmth, and community, built by hand, moved by hand, and passed down by hand, generation after generation. And maybe that's the real lesson here. We spend so much time chasing bigger homes, fancier tools, more stuff. But these families built something that kept them warm through brutal winters, using only what the land gave them and the wisdom their elders shared. No manuals, no hardware stores, just knowledge, patience, and hands that knew exactly what to do. So the next time the wind picks up and you're safe inside your own home, take a second to think about that family on the plains. Poles tied together, hide stretched tight, smoke curling up into a cold night sky. They didn't just survive out there, they thrived, on their own terms, using nothing but the land and each other. Close your eyes for a second. Imagine that fire crackling low. Imagine the smell of hide, smoke, and cold night air. Imagine voices, laughing softly, safe from the storm outside. That warmth wasn't an accident. It was earned, built by hands that knew exactly what they were doing. And honestly, that's a story worth remembering, long after the fire burns low and fades to embers.